Ambassador Clorax of the Zentari conclave exhaled a breath of relief as he adjusted his ceremonial robes. The great hall of peaceful resolution buzzed with the excited murmurs of 17 species from across the Orion Arm. After 6 decades of brutal conflict, the galactic armistice was finally within reach. "Are all species accounted for?" Clorax asked his assistant Pibble, a small purple creature with 6 eyes arranged in a perfect hexagon. Pibble consulted his datapad. "Almost, Ambassador. We're just waiting for the humans." Pibble's voice dropped to a whisper on the last word, as if speaking it might summon them. Clorax's antennae twitched nervously. "The humans." Right. He'd forgotten they'd been invited. The newest spacefaring species had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago, and the Galactic Council had deemed it politically expedient to include them, despite their minimal role in the conflict. "Do we know anything about their representative?" "Only that they're sending someone called Ambassador Janelle Tucker," Pibble replied. "No military record we could find. Supposedly a diplomat." Clorax nodded. At least they weren't sending one of their warriors. Stories about human soldiers had spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire, tales of endurance that strained credulity, realism of bizarre physiology that allowed them to consume toxins for pleasure, of their strange ability to continue fighting long after receiving injuries that would incapacitate any reasonable species. "Probably for the best," Clorax muttered. The Draviks would likely walk out if humans showed up in military uniform. As if on cue, General Vazik of the Draviks Imperium approached, his scaled skin gleaming under the hall's crystalline lights. The Draviks were hulking reptilians with reinforced exoskeletons and natural armor plating the galaxy's premier warriors until humans had appeared on the scene. "Ambassador Clorax," Vazik rumbled, mandibles clicking. "I trust this meeting will be swift and productive. The Imperium's patience grows thin." "Of course, General," Clorax said, bowing slightly. "We're only waiting for one more delegation." The grand doors at the far end of the hall swung open with a dramatic whoosh. Every being in the room turned to look. A single human female walked in. Alone. No security detail. No advisors. No weapons visible. Ambassador Janelle Tucker was of average height for a human, which made her taller than most species present, but nowhere near as imposing as the Draviks. She wore what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire, a tailored blue suit that matched the color of her homeworld as seen from orbit. Clorax released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Perhaps this would go smoothly after all, and then he noticed what she was carrying. Under her right arm was a small container, a thermal preservation unit, by the look of it, the kind used to transport biological specimens or food. Every species in the hall tensed simultaneously. "Hello, everyone," Ambassador Tucker called out cheerfully, striding forward with that distinctive human gait, the bizarre heel-toe pendulum walk that made them look perpetually off balance, yet somehow terrifyingly efficient. "Sorry I'm late. Spatial traffic around Alpha Centauri was a nightmare." General Vazik's hand instinctively moved to where his ceremonial blade would normally hang, but weapons had been banned from the proceedings. "Ambassador Tucker," Clorax stepped forward, performing the traditional greeting gesture of his people, a complex movement involving his 4 upper limbs that conveyed peaceful intentions. "Welcome to the Hall of Peaceful Resolution. We are honored by Earth's participation." Tucker smiled, that strange baring of teeth that humans insisted was friendly, and reached out her hand. "The honor is all mine, Ambassador Clorax of the Zentari Conclave." "Ambassador Clorax. Earth is grateful for the invitation," she continued, holding her hand out, suspended in mid-air. Clorax stared at it in confusion until Pibble urgently whispered, "It's their greeting ritual, sir. You're supposed to grasp appendages." "Ah, yes." Clorax reluctantly extended one of his limbs and allowed the human to wrap her 5-fingered hand around it. The strength in her grip was surprising, and he couldn't help but notice the hard calcium deposits at the end of each digit. Natural weapons, embedded right into their hands. "Shall we begin?" Tucker asked, releasing him. "Indeed." Clorax gestured toward the central negotiation table. "But first, might I inquire about that?" He pointed at the container under her arm. "Oh, this!" Tucker lifted the container. "Just a little something from Earth. A goodwill offering." A ripple of alarm spread through the assembled delegates. The Florix representative's translucent skin turned a sickly shade of green. The Moraxian delegation began quietly edging toward the exits. How thoughtful Clorax managed. Perhaps we should store it safely until after the proceedings. Tucker laughed. No need. I brought enough for everyone. She placed the container on the central table and began unfastening its thermal seals. I figured, what better way to celebrate coming together than sharing a traditional Earth delicacy? The room went silent as the top of the container opened with a soft hiss. Inside were dozens of small brown discs. The cookies. Tucker announced proudly. Chocolate chip. I baked them myself last night. Clorax's translator struggled with the word cookies, eventually settling on voluntary poisoned discs. General Vazik stepped back sharply. Is this some kind of threat display? He demanded. Then Tucker's expression shifted to confusion. What? No, they're just cookies. Dessert, you know, a sweet treat? Sweet poison? Asked the representative from the Azandorian hive. They're not poison, Tucker insisted, looking increasingly bewildered. They're delicious. Here, watch. She picked up one of the discs and, to the collective horror of the entire assembly, placed it into her mouth and began grinding it with her calcium stone teeth. Several delegates gasped. The Etherian ambassador actually fainted. Tucker said, apparently enjoying the self-inflicted chemical assault. I may have added a bit too much vanilla, but they turned out pretty good. Clorax watched in fascinated revulsion as the human consumed the disc. His scientific curiosity eventually overcame his diplomatic reserve. Ambassador Tucker, are you aware that what you just consumed contains theobromine? Well, yeah. That's in chocolate. A substance toxic to most carbon-based life in the galaxy, he continued. Tucker's eyes widened. Oh. I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cause offense. Not offense, Clorax clarified. Terror. Terror? She looked genuinely perplexed. Pibble leaned over to whisper into Clorax's hearing organ. Sir, I've just accessed the xenobiology briefing on humans. Apparently, they regularly consume substances that would be lethal to other species. Their biology has evolved to process dozens of compounds that would kill most of us instantly. Is this normal behavior for your species? General Vazik asked Tucker, mandibles twitching in what Clorax recognized as extreme agitation. Eating cookies? Absolutely. Especially during negotiations. It's practically a diplomatic tradition on Earth. Tucker smiled again, that disconcerting display of bone shards. Would anyone like to try one? I promise they're good. The room erupted in a chorus of polite refusals. More for me then, Tucker shrugged, consuming another poison disc with apparent pleasure. So, shall we get down to business? I understand we have a peace treaty to hammer out. Yes, indeed, Clorax said quickly, eager to move past the disturbing display. If everyone would please take their assigned seats. One moment. General Vazik interrupted. I must ask, Ambassador Tucker, have you come alone? No security detail? Tucker looked surprised by the question. Of course. This is a peace conference. Bringing armed guards would send the wrong message. The Dravik's general exchanged glances with his advisors. You traveled through 17 sectors of contested space alone. Well, I had my ship's AI for company, Tucker replied casually. Takes for a long 3 weeks, but I caught up on some reading. Murmurs spread across the hall. The human had traversed some of the most dangerous regions of the galaxy unescorted, apparently unconcerned for her safety. That was brave, Clorax offered. Tucker waved dismissively. Not really, just practical. Our military resources are stretched thin and this meeting is important. She pulled out a chair and sat down. Now about this treaty. The negotiations proceeded with tense formality for the next few hours. Clorax found the human's diplomatic style oddly direct yet effective. She had a knack for cutting through centuries of interspecies posturing with disarmingly simple questions that somehow got to the heart of complex issues. During a brief recess, Clorax pulled Pibble aside. What do we know about their military capabilities? Do the humans? Pibble consulted his datapad nervously. Not much, sir. They're newcomers to galactic politics. Their technology is uneven, more advanced than expected in some areas, surprisingly primitive in others. Assessment of threat level? Unclear, sir. But there are rumors. Rumors? Pibble lowered his voice. They fought a brief border skirmish with the Kraxon marauders last solar cycle. The Kraxon fleet hasn't been seen since. Clorax's antennae stiffened. The entire fleet? Yes, sir. The humans don't talk about it, neither do the Kraxon, those few we can find. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of General Vazik's booming voice from across the hall, where he had cornered Ambassador Tucker. So you're telling me the General was saying that humans voluntarily expose themselves to concentrated solar radiation? For pleasure? It's called sunbathing. General, Tucker explained patiently. Some of us find it relaxing. Helps with vitamin D synthesis. You deliberately irradiate yourselves to relax. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds weird, Tucker laughed. But yes, we also sometimes immerse ourselves in large bodies of dihydrogen monoxide for enjoyment. The Dravix General's scales paled noticeably. The universal solvent? The substance that has eroded entire continents. We call it swimming. Great exercise. Clorax watched as the formidable Dravix General, a being responsible for the conquest of 7 star systems, took a subtle step away from the human diplomat. As the negotiations resumed, Clorax noticed a shift in the room's dynamics. Species that had been at each other's throats for decades were now seated closer together, united by a new, unspoken concern. Even long-standing enemies like the Zentari and Dravix found themselves exchanging meaningful glances across the table. The remainder of the day's session was remarkably productive. Points of contention that had stalled previous peace talks for years were suddenly resolved with surprising speed. It seemed that the presence of the human had created an unexpected sense of urgency among the delegates. By the day's end, they had accomplished more than Clorax had dared hope. As he adjourned the session, he couldn't help but wonder if this strange twist of fate, the unsettling presence of Ambassador Tucker, might actually be the catalyst needed to finally bring peace to the galaxy. Little did he know that the true shock was yet to come. The second day of the galactic armistice negotiations began with an unexpected development. Ambassador Janelle Tucker arrived 15 minutes early, carrying another container. "Good morning, everyone," she called out cheerfully as she entered the Hall of Peaceful Resolution. "I brought coffee." The word translated differently across 17 universal translators, but the collective reaction was the same. Horror. "You brought what?" Clorax asked, hoping his translator had malfunctioned. "Coffee," Tucker repeated, setting down a large thermal carafe. "I noticed everyone seemed a bit tense yesterday. Thought this might help." Pibble quickly consulted his datapad and leaned toward Clorax. "Sir, coffee is a stimulant beverage humans consume. It contains caffeine, a neurotoxin that plants evolved to kill insects. And the humans drink this neurotoxin intentionally," Clorax whispered back. "Apparently several times daily." Tucker was already pouring herself a cup of the steaming black liquid. The aroma filled the chamber, causing several delegates to back away. The gaseous collective of Traxor V actually condensed, slightly in apparent distress. "Anyone care to join me?" Tucker asked, holding up the carafe. The silence was deafening. "No, your loss." She took a sip and sighed contentedly. "Perfect. Just what I needed after staying up all night reviewing the treaty drafts." "You stayed up? All night?" General Vazik asked slowly. "Well, yeah, there was a lot to go through." Tucker placed several datapads on the table. "I've drafted some compromise language for sections 17 through 35 that I think addresses everyone's concerns." Clorax exchanged glances with Pibble. "Ambassador Tucker, our session ended at the 47th rotation yesterday. That was only 8 hours ago." Tucker nodded, taking another sip of her neurotoxin. "Right. Plenty of time to work through the proposals. You haven't slept?" asked the Moraxian delegate, their feathered crest rising in alarm. Tucker waved dismissively. "I'll catch up later. This is more important." The implications sank in across the room. Humans could apparently forgo their dormancy cycle without significant impairment. More concerning, they could consume nerve toxins to enhance their cognitive function. "Let's get started, shall we?" Tucker said brightly, seemingly oblivious to the unease she was causing. I think we made excellent progress yesterday. The morning session proceeded with eerie efficiency. Tucker's suggested compromises were surprisingly equitable, addressing concerns that had deadlocked previous negotiations for decades. Many delegates found themselves reluctantly impressed by the human's diplomatic skill, even as they maintained a safe distance from her and her container of toxins. During the midday recess, Clorax noticed General Vazik and several other military representatives huddled in intense conversation. He casually drifted within earshot. Absolutely can't afford to antagonize them, the Dravix general was saying. Have you seen the briefing on their home planet? What about it? Asked the Gazelle commander, her tentacles writhing anxiously. They evolved on a death world. Gravity almost twice what most species consider comfortable. Atmospheric pressure that would crush a Floridian and the wildlife. I heard they keep predators in their dwellings, another officer whispered. Voluntarily. Predators. The Gazelle commander's color patterns shifted in disbelief. They call them pets. Carnivorous quadrupeds with razor teeth, and the humans sleep in the same shelter with them. Clorax moved away, troubled by what he'd overheard. As the lead facilitator for the peace talks, he needed to maintain objectivity. But even he couldn't deny the growing sense that they were dealing with something unprecedented. When the talks resumed, Tucker had switched to water, but that did little to reduce the tension. Especially after she casually mentioned she'd brought her own because she couldn't stomach the filtered stuff provided at the station. Is there something wrong with our filtration systems? Asked the Azandorian representative, offended. No, Tucker backpedaled. It's just too pure. I prefer water with minerals in it. You deliberately consume water contaminated with minerals? The Zandorian's compound eyes blinked rapidly in succession. Well, yes, for taste and health benefits. The afternoon negotiations continued with periodic interruptions as Tucker inadvertently revealed more disturbing facts about human biology and customs. By the time she mentioned that humans sometimes deliberately broke bones to reset them properly for healing, the Etherian ambassador had to be escorted from the room. Did I say something wrong? Tucker asked Clorax during a brief recess. Not wrong precisely, Clorax replied diplomatically. Your species is simply unique. Every species is unique, she said with a shrug. Indeed. Though some are more unique than others. As they returned to the table, an urgent message flashed across Clorax's personal communicator. The security officer at the station's docking bay needed to speak with him immediately regarding an urgent issue with the human vessel. Clorax excused himself and hurried to the nearest private communication chamber. What's the problem? He asked the moment the secure connection was established. The security officer, a veteran Zentari named Glax, appeared unusually flustered. Sir, we've been conducting routine security scans of all diplomatic vessels as per protocol. And? Armed, the human ship, sir. It's barely armed. Clorax's antennae twitched in confusion. That's good news, isn't it? You don't understand, sir. It has defensive capabilities appropriate for a civilian transport. Minimal shields. Point defense lasers only. I still don't see the issue. Sir, they sent their ambassador across 17 sectors of contested space in what amounts to a pleasure yacht. Either they're insane, or what? Glax's voice dropped to a whisper. Or they're so confident in their abilities that they don't fear attack, even from the Kraxon. Clorax felt a chill run through his central nervous system. Continue monitoring the vessel. Report any unusual activity immediately. When he returned to the negotiation chamber, Clorax found the proceedings had taken yet another unexpected turn. Somehow the conversation had shifted to recreation, and Tucker was in the middle of explaining human sports. So in this rugby, General Vazik was asking, mandibles clicking in disbelief, the objective is to deliberately collide with members of the opposing team. Well, that's not the main objective, Tucker clarified. The goal is to carry the ball to the scoring area. But yes, tackling is a key part of the game. Tackling? You mean physical assault? It's not assault if it's part of the game, Tucker laughed. It's fun. You find physical violence enjoyable? The Dravik's general's voice carried a note of genuine alarm now. It's not violence, it's sport, Tucker insisted. Though I guess to outsiders it might look a bit rough. And children participate in these combat sports? Asked the Florix representative. Sure, from a young age. Builds character. Before anyone could respond to this disturbing revelation, the chamber doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. A human male strode in, wearing what was unmistakably a military uniform adorned with insignia of rank. The room went deadly silent. Janelle. The newcomer called out. There you are. Tucker's expression transformed from diplomatic poise to visible discomfort. Admiral Scott. What are you doing here? Clorax felt his blood pressure skyrocket. An admiral. They had sent a military commander to a peace conference. The human male approached the table with that same unnerving pendulum walk. When you didn't check in according to protocol, command got worried. You know the rules about solo diplomatic missions in contested space. Tucker's face flushed with what Clorax's xenobiology training identified as embarrassment or anger. I'm fine, as you can see. We're in the middle of delicate negotiations, so I see, the Admiral said, surveying the assembled delegates with interest. Hope I'm not interrupting anything important. General Vazik rose to his impressive full height. You are Admiral Scott? Of the human military? Rear Admiral James Scott, Earth Defense Force. The man confirmed with a nod. And you must be General Vazik of the Draviks. Heard a lot about you. You have? The general's scales shifted color slightly. Oh yeah, that maneuver at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Brilliant tactical thinking. We teach it at our military academy now. The Dravik's general appeared momentarily flustered by the compliment before recovering his composure. Why have you come, Admiral? This is a diplomatic gathering. Just checking on our ambassador, Scott replied casually. Standard procedure when one of our people misses a check-in. I didn't miss it, Tucker protested. I sent the diplomatic update packet yesterday. Yes, but not the security verification code. Because nothing security-related has happened. Admiral Scott raised an eyebrow. Protocol is protocol, Ambassador. As the two humans bickered, Clorax noticed something alarming. The Admiral was carrying what appeared to be a sidearm. Weapons were strictly forbidden in the Hall of Peaceful Resolution. Admiral, Clorax said, pointing to the device on his hip, I must ask you to surrender your weapon. This is a neutral zone. Scott glanced down as if surprised. Oh, this? It's not a weapon. He unclipped the device from his belt and held it up. It's just my personal coffee heating unit. Can't stand cold coffee. The assembled diplomats stared in disbelief as the Admiral pressed a button, causing the device to emit a soft hum and glow with gentle heat. See? Just a heater. He clipped it back to his belt. Sorry for the confusion. Clorax knew he should feel relieved, but somehow the explanation was even more unsettling. The humans were so addicted to their neurotoxin that they carried special heating devices to maintain its optimal temperature. How many military vessels accompanied you, Admiral? General Vazik asked with carefully measured words. Just my flagship, Scott replied. The rest of the fleet is running exercises back in Sol system. The rest of the fleet? Vazik repeated. Might I ask the size of your fleet? Scott shrugged. Standard patrol group. 1 battlecruiser, couple of destroyers, support vessels. Nothing fancy. And this is a small portion of your total military strength. The general's voice had taken on an unusual quality that Clorax had never heard before. Was that fear? Oh, sure, Scott said casually. Can't leave the home systems undefended, you know, but I didn't come here to talk shop. I just needed to verify the ambassador's safety. He turned to Tucker. Since you're clearly fine, I'll head back to the Perseus and let you get on with your work. Thank you, Admiral, Tucker said pointedly. Please extend my regards to Captain Reeves. We will do. Scott nodded politely to the assembled delegates. Pleasure meeting you all. Looking forward to peaceful relations between our peoples. With that, he turned and left as abruptly as he had arrived. In the silence that followed, Clorax could almost hear the recalculation happening in every alien mind. If the humans considered a battlecruiser and multiple destroyers a small patrol group, what did their actual fleet look like? Well, Tucker said brightly, apparently oblivious to the effect the Admiral's visit had caused. Shall we continue with Section 36 of the treaty? The final hours of negotiation proceeded with unprecedented efficiency. Points of contention that had been debated for years were suddenly conceded with minimal resistance. Territorial disputes that had caused bloodshed for generations were resolved with surprising generosity from all sides. By the end of the day, they had accomplished what no one had thought possible. A comprehensive peace treaty, fully drafted and ready for ratification. I must say, Tucker commented as they finalized the document, I'm impressed with how quickly we've reached consensus. When I was briefed on this assignment, I was told these negotiations had been deadlocked for decades. Yes, well, Clorax said carefully, sometimes a fresh perspective is all that's needed. Indeed, General Vazik agreed, signing the treaty with unusual haste. The Dravix Imperium looks forward to a new era of peaceful coexistence with all species, especially humans. As the signing ceremony concluded, Clorax pulled Pibble aside one final time. Send an urgent message to the Zentari High Council. Priority Alpha. What should it say, sir? Pibble asked. Clorax considered his words carefully. Say that the peace treaty has been successfully negotiated with significant assistance from the human delegation. Add. Yes, sir. Add that we should immediately dispatch our most skilled diplomats to Earth with generous trade proposals. Trade proposals, sir? Yes. And cultural exchange programs, educational initiatives, anything to establish friendly relations. I understand completely, sir, Pibble said, all six of his eyes blinking in synchrony. Later that evening, as the various delegations prepared for departure, Clorax found Ambassador Tucker in the observation lounge, gazing out at the stars. Ambassador, he greeted her. I wanted to personally thank you for your contribution to these historic negotiations. Just doing my job, she replied with that strange tooth-baring expression humans use to signal friendliness. Though I have to admit it went much more smoothly than I anticipated. Indeed, Clorax agreed. Most unexpected, by the way. Tucker said, turning from the viewport I've been meaning to ask. Several delegates made comments about humans being intimidating. I don't understand. We're not particularly strong compared to species like the Dravix. Our technology isn't as advanced as the Zentaris, and we're newcomers to the galactic stage. Clorax's antennae twitched in amusement. Ambassador Tucker, in the past 2 days you have casually revealed that humans voluntarily consume multiple toxins, expose themselves to radiation for pleasure, but can go without sleep while maintaining cognitive function, keep predators as companions, and train your young through ritualized combat. Well, when you put it that way. And then your military commander arrived, revealed that what we would consider a substantial fleet is merely a patrol group, and complimented the most feared general in the galaxy on his battle tactics. Tucker laughed. Admiral Scott has always had a flair for the dramatic. He was just trying to be friendly. Of course, Clorax said diplomatically, in any case, the result is what matters. Peace has been achieved. To peace. Then, Tucker said, raising her cup of coffee in a gesture that Clorax had learned was a human toast. To peace, he agreed, carefully keeping his distance from the steaming cup of neurotoxin, and to the continued prosperity of all our species. As she turned back to the stars, Clorax added silently to himself, and to whatever gods might be listening, please let humans always consider you as friends. Because he couldn't even imagine what would happen if they ever decided to become enemies.